Good morning.
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 How you doing?
Morning.
How's everybody doing? Is that Cornerstone, Tiffany?
I am. I'm driving. I don't know if anyone else was supposed to talk today, but I'm on.
I didn't catch what happened with was there a employment report this morning?
Yes, it was better than anticipated.
Which
So the
means work,
bond market,
which means better is worse. That's
exactly. You couldn't have said it better. Yeah.
So what does that do to the 10-year for us, which is the barometer for interest rates?
Yeah, I mean, we're looking at, believe it or not, I mean, what you just said was dead on. The bond market recovered a little bit, but our rates have actually increased. So I think 2 days ago was probably the best day that we've had in a while. And hopefully other people locked their pipeline similar to the way I did, because waking up yesterday and this morning was a little bit of a different indicator. So, here we go again, where we're probably going to see some increases short term. And then we're hoping, I mean, the meeting is the 7th. The Feds are meeting to discuss rate reduction, which I don't see is going to be a possibility. Some people are hanging on to the hopes that they'll do that. I don't think it's going to happen. I think we're going to keep seeing our rates in the sixes, high six, low sevens, depending on the criteria of the file, because every file is different.
Right.
So that big refinance boom, that big reduction, I don't see it coming anytime soon.
So once again, all the interest rate predictors are all fired still, right?
Exactly. Just like the weatherman, they should all be on the unemployment line.
Correct. Wonderful. Well, thank you for that update, even though I won't call it a highlight. I'll call it a low light.
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you. And I'm glad to be back. I was not on for the last 2 weeks, and I'm looking forward to our mastermind today. So thank you and happy weekend.
All right. Yeah, get reset here. So anybody have any crazy good success stories for this week?
I do,
Sure.
Go ahead.
Trisha. So I have the opportunity in 2 weeks. I'm going to be, at Realtor Quest in Toronto. Toronto is the largest real estate board in the world. And I have the opportunity to speak about Canadian selling in the US, how important it is to pick the people that have the experience and the resources. So hopefully that'll give me tons of exposure and listings for future.
Fantastic.
Wonderful, good.
And I don't know if Tony Johnson is on today. Are you, Tony? Tony doesn't look like he is. So I actually did a home buyer event at Tony's church, and we had 5 people stay after, and I think every single one of them is interested and motivated in making a purchase. So if you were at that virtual buyer event I did, when I'm in your market, I'd be glad to do a in-person event, speak on behalf of the company, and then refer all the leads to you. Um, and it's really special to help people who perhaps don't think they can buy. And that's like a segment that's underserved. We're all chasing the people that have identified and are in the market now. And every one of those clients that Tony had there were not previously shopping on Zillow, Realtor, looking to buy. They were um, kind of, I don't know, I almost want to call them lifer renters. And I think he changed the trajectory of their mindset and maybe change it for, their history by getting them exposure to um, what's possible. Okay. So, so
Christina Hudson did an interesting event last night, really trying to spread out her, you know, search for people. She did a bridal expo last night. What a great idea that was. I mean, she just called me. She met 4 couples that, of course, they can't buy right now, but they could be nurtured into after the wedding is over. And it was a great opportunity to meet those buyers firsthand, that are all renting right now. So that was a nice, different opportunity for her.
What wonderful. And
Rob, I was just going to mention that I had a client that I sold a house to 13 years ago, and they over the past 13 years we've become friendly. I've been the emergency contact for their daughters through middle school and into college. And just recently, last week, they called me and said they're looking to purchase a house, and I found them a house and we put in an offer on it. We're still waiting to hear back on that. And just yesterday, we were invited to the older daughter's wedding. So I think it's important just to point out that you need to really stay in touch with your clients, because when all else fails, one of them's going to pop up and say, "Hey, I want to do something," and you want to make sure they do it with you.
fantastic. And there's one thing I want to talk about, which is like the mindset of a business relationship. Okay. And I think consumers view our relationship as a transactional relationship as opposed to a lifelong relationship. And our industry doesn't help because, Robert, give me the name of somebody that you sold the house to 2 or more years ago. Just the first name,
Roy,
Roy. Now, how do you refer to Roy in terms of
Roy,
business? No, if I say you're going to go to you refer them as past clients?
yes,
See, that's a bad mindset,
not past,
right?
previous.
Well, previous still is not good because that means they're not your client now. So I think we need to call them clients, right?
Yep,
And I'm not being critical. I'm just saying that this is the mindset because we've bought into the transactional model of the business. So it's my past client means that they're not your client anymore. A financial advisor, you buy a stock, right? After you buy a stock, he's still your financial advisor, right? Whether it's a self-managed account or you have them do the trade for you. That's my financial advisor. Your insurance broker is your insurance broker, even if you automatically renew. I think we need to be, they need to be our clients, not our past previous clients. And with that mindset, when you're talking to somebody about a transaction, it's about the relationship, not the transaction. The customer is focused on, what is it going to cost me as a buyer's agent or as a seller? What's the fee? And I think the fee is less relevant than the relationship, right? Um, the the attendees to last night's event, um, 2 or 3 of them were talking afterwards. At least 2 were talking to me about um, after they buy a house, what's the process for saving to get an investment, and how would they go ahead and do that? And in this seminar, only one out of the attendees knew about the exemption on the sale of your primary resident of 250 and 500,000. Okay.
Good morning.
Nope, let me just
Good,
mute everybody.
good. Wait, hold on just for half a second.
Sorry about that. So so when we're engaging with a client, it's not about like what's the fee, it's about what the relationship looks like. And then with that mindset, we talk about like today's topic, which is, the value of your business. And, it's math, right? And, I happen to be known as somebody who's bought a few businesses. And when you buy the businesses, you look at the recurring revenue stream. And like it or not, every one of you is a business owner. And, your income is your income, but your business has a value, and the value of your business is based upon the predictable recurring revenue stream. And the predictable recurring revenue stream is a function of, the clients that you have and the activities that you do to generate or stay top of mind to generate more business. Okay. I wrote down a couple of things in terms of looking at your business. Um, you know, Consistency requires measurement. Okay, it requires you looking at, well, what's the return for the activities I'm doing? When you measure, it reinforces accountability. Um, Consistency establishes your reputation. Because if you're not consistent, people don't really want to work with you, especially long term. They might stay with you for a transaction, but they're not staying with you for a lifetime. Consistency makes you relevant, and consistency maintains your message.
Rob, when you're speaking about consistency, what are you referring to? Like your marketing, your keeping in touch with them? What are you referring to when you're saying consistency?
Everything. So consistency is returning phone calls, being accountable, having a structure. It's uh, going through the same process so somebody knows what they're going to get when they work with you, right? If you're listing a house, if you're working with a buyer, okay, that's what consistency is, so that Remax has a brand, but more importantly, you have a brand, right? So, if you're in the habit of not getting back to people, if you're in the habit of looking at things transactionally, which is where the industry likes to pigeonhole us into being a transactional business, you fall into the trap. And part of the consistency is also, are you keeping in touch with your clients, right? If you're not keeping in touch with your clients and they go astray, um, whose fault is it, right? It's ours. And I know we've all been there where, we've had clients that we've done a great job with. Some of them we've even kept in touch with appropriately or close to appropriately. And then we go online and we look at the hot sheet and, guess what? They listed their house with somebody else, right? Has anybody ever had that stinger, right? So, so, you know, that's something that, consistency can help us avoid, right? Um, and I also want to talk about consistency in terms of, valuing a business, because, we're all, real estate professionals, we're salespeople, but we really are business people, right? We make decisions. You're a doctor that does everything, okay? Um, you take in clients, you solve their problems, you maintain their health. Like, that's what we do. We do everything involved in the transaction. Some of us with teams, or some of us that have leverage, have maybe outsourced parts of it, but we're basically, we're a self-contained business unit. Um, when you look at businesses, right, there are companies um, like NVIDIA and 3M. And I just pulled those up because I just wanted to point out, how important beliefs about future revenue and consistency influence not only the now, but the future. So 3M is I believe that's a Dow company, been around for years. Okay, it's a steady earner, but that company trades less than 9 times earnings. And NVIDIA, which is a high tech company, you have to pay 37 times earnings, even with its recent pullback. And the reason why these trade differently is because of beliefs about the future, right? Um, 3M is a, old it's an old income stream that they don't believe is going to be robust and growing, right? And NVIDIA, people think, wow, artificial intelligence, semiconductors, technology. We think that this industry is going to grow a lot faster than, the 3M, whatever it is that their main products are, which the only thing I can think of is Post-it business, right? The artificial intelligence versus the Post-it business is trading at different valuations. Um, if you're not consistent and your business isn't growing, okay, the same earnings that you have are going to be worth less to a buyer, which means that they should be worth less to you, if that makes any sense. Anybody following me on this? Even if you're not planning on selling your business, the mindset really matters. All right. It's going to be a low participation day today. Um, and consistency can also help predict future earnings because everybody I see here is a good market and a bad market agent, right? Nobody on this call here is planning on if the market goes down another 5% exiting the business, right? So we figure out how to survive it and hopefully we figure out how to thrive in the change. And I'm actually looking through the whole list and is there anybody on this call that's less than a year in the business? That's awesome. So you understand what it's like to be not dependent upon, Tiffany was giving us the news, but Tiffany is not updating her resume because interest rates aren't coming down and there's going to be a refinance boom. Um, you know, people in some of the New Jersey markets where inventory is tight aren't thinking of getting a side job. Okay, they're thinking about doubling down on the activities and the consistency that will, allow them to grow in a flat or even a down market. Um, is there anybody on the call that had any thoughts about what they're going to do with their business when you eventually start to scale back or even retire? Anybody?
You should be able
That
to
an
sell the
option?
business at least for referrals, for sure, to generate some, retirement income. I would say you need to hook up with someone that's gonna, you can trust and that will, be a good source to send your leads to so that you get something. Sell your list too. I thought about it.
Right? Going into referral, um,
Between that,
transition.
I would think that you would do, joining them with a co-list and phasing out. So, you would get 40% maybe of the commission and then 30% and then 20% and phase out until it is a referral business. I don't think you should go from straight full to referral.
Okay.
You could be the secondary agent.
Um, and I'm going to speak from firsthand experience recently. I think we probably have some of you and our entire Arizona family and Florida and New Jersey. We have additions. Most of those business owners didn't structure and plan properly for a sale, and I think they've left money on the table when they sold their business because it was more of, you know what, the last 3 months have been bad, or something happened, and they decided to put their business on the market, but they didn't prepare for it. And the analogy I'm going to give you is most people who have great real estate businesses, when they retire, maybe they go into referral, they take the call-ins, they refer them out for a referral fee, but they really haven't structured a meaningful transition of that business. And I would ask if anybody can tell me if you know of anybody that had a great business, planned a transition, and had a successful handoff of the business? Anybody think
Yes,
of anybody?
yes, in Missouri, but yes, a couple.
Okay. All right. Can you mind just sharing me what your perception of that handoff was and how it was orchestrated?
Just like I said, they actually partnered. The main agent introduced the other agent to her clients. And then they phased out, just like I said, it was like a 60, 50, 40, 30, where that main agent earned less and less. And I will tell you that she never got to a referral standpoint. What happened, I'm speaking of one that's specifically what was really important about that particular one is that she ended up being diagnosed with cancer. And so the person she partnered with as she was phasing out of her business, and that included her entire database, which was gigantic. She had a consistent income while she had cancer. So that was really amazing for that to happen with her, to continue her income, phase out her database, make a percentage of those commissions, and she was still a point of contact, but secondary.
Okay.
So it worked out fabulously.
And Beth, how many people do you know that have retired from the business that were full time? Probably 50, right?
I know a lot. Yeah.
Probably 50. Is
Yeah,
it
at
safe to
least.
say that most of them probably didn't properly plan for it and maybe are just making random referrals by putting their license into referral instead of doing it that way?
Probably at least 2/3 of them. Yeah.
Yeah, I would, and this is not a retirement session or a pre-retirement session by any stretch of the imagination, but if you're going to get your business fixed, like if you're going to upgrade your house, right? Some people decide, hey, I'm going to put a new kitchen in and new bathrooms just before I sell it, right? But you don't get the benefit of that while you live there. My my analogy here is if you put these structural changes in and you plan ahead, you'll be able to have the benefit of uh, those changes while you're in the business, and you'll do a better transition or evaluation of your business. And even if you're not selling, it's good to know what the value of your business is. And I'll give you like a simple rule of thumb, which would be take your gross earnings, okay, your gross commissions, divide them by two. So if you made 150,000, you divide it by two, that's 50,000, and you multiply that by three. So that should be what you're expecting to get when you decide to exit or slow down in the business. Is there anybody that's satisfied with that number or anybody that's dissatisfied with it?
Could you repeat it?
So I would say that you take your gross earnings. Okay, so if you're a platinum agent, that's 250,000. Let's just say you just made platinum. You divide that number by two, that's 125, and then you multiply it by three. I'm going to tell you why you do that in a second. Let me just try to get this view back to,
375.
yep, 375,000. Okay. And here's the thought process here. If you have repeat clients, right, and you wanted to refer it to a colleague in your office, okay, this is somebody, Beth Steele, you sold somebody a house 8 years ago. Now they want to list it. Could you find somebody in your office that would give you a 50% referral fee if you're giving them all your business?
Absolutely.
I think you probably could, right? Because they're layups, and I think if anybody wants to give Beth business with a very strong client with a 50% referral fee, I think you probably would strongly consider accepting that, right?
Absolutely.
So the cost of generating the business, that's quality business, and referrals are better than Zillow. They're better than any business that you can get. Many of us take listing referrals from HomeLight or Zillow, and we pay 35, 40, 45% referral fees. Beth's referrals that she would be giving out or the ones that she's taking would be a 50% referral fee. So that's pure revenue if you're out of the business. So you get half the business with no expenses. And then we multiply that by 3 because that's the earnings multiple for a personalized sales business.
Yeah, it goes in my,
So
that person goes in my database and I stay in touch. Absolutely.
correct. So if you're just curious about what the value of your business is, and for those of you who are curious about, when I look at, brokerages, if the brokerage isn't in absolute decay or decline, right, where, they had 40 agents 2 years ago, 25 last year, and 19 now. I call that trying to catch a falling knife. That's problematic. It's very hard to value. But you Inc., right, which is your book of business, if you stay in touch with your clients and if you were thinking ahead, like when um, an attorney or a dentist or a doctor, when they sell their business, what they normally do is they become part of another organization, say, hey, I'm now working um, uh, with a medical group or a law firm, and then your clients assimilate into that practice, and then you exit the business, and they have whatever their business arrangement is behind the scenes. Okay, so that's how professional businesses, are valued, and the whole point of talking about how they're valued is to, allow you to have that awareness at top of mind so that your business is more valuable to you while you're practicing it. And then when you decide that you want to exit, that it's more structured and predictable. I hope that's not like everybody is thinking about retiring here, but it's kind of like, let's enjoy the disciplines while we're remaining in the business as long as we decide to. And then we know that we're structured so that we can do a successful, profitable handoff in the future, right? And then if any of us here are thinking about or know somebody in your office that is thinking about, retiring in a year or two, start to make that plan now. And, we can make more referrals and provide more value to people if you wanted to, slow down or get out of the business. And like Beth would love to get referrals of quality business with a 50% referral fee. I'm assuming, right? And if you were to, slow down, or let's just say that, you wanted to take 3 months off, wouldn't it be nice to know that you can get 50% of the business without having any work? You can make money while you're away because you're organized and structured. Yeah, I think that's pretty amazing. So, anyway, anybody have any thoughts, comments?
I've had people say, you're giving away 35% of your commission or whatever, in getting these referrals. And they say, I don't want to give away 35%. I'm like, well, it's a whole lot better than zero. You'd earn zero if you didn't get this referral. And secondly, those people go, like I said, go into your database, and then you work that database and get additional referrals that you're not paying a referral fee on. So it's a great way to multiply your business by taking that initial referral.
Yep. And I'm going to do now. We're at the midpoint here. I don't know if Mark Feingold, if you're able to talk for a moment, but I want to do like a public service warning announcement here. Are you able to unmute yourself there, Mark? All right, he'll do it in just a moment here. But this is probably in the bottom left there. Usually there's a little
How's about now?
perfect.
You got me?
Yep. So Mark is one of our Tinton Falls team, Monmouth, Ocean County. If you have any business, but Mark will occasionally reach out and we'll talk about things that sometimes don't make sense, or things that are outside of his normal course of business. And recently he called me up about a couple of inquiries he got for sellers of land. And Mark, if you want to give an abbreviated summary of what transpired, I think it would benefit everybody.
Sure. Well, last week I got a referral out of nowhere from Realtor.com. It was a guy who wanted to sell land, and he said that he saw me on Realtor, and I looked like I knew what I was doing, and I worked in the area, and could I help him? So I wrote back, sure, no problem. Anyway, I looked up the property, and it was there, but wasn't listed, and did all the research that you can possibly do to find out what it would be worth. I spoke to Rob, and he asked me if there were any properties near this land. I said, right next door, there's 1,000,001. And he said, well, typically it could be worth 30 to 35% of the comps. So I got all excited and pursued this. Anyway, as I was discussing via text with this guy, learned that he was not at home. He lived in Jackson. He had an address in Jackson. He had a name. And he was masquerading as this gentleman who did live in Jackson. So anyway, it started getting a little bit, questionable and shaky as the days went on. But he wanted to sign up immediately. I wrote up the offer. I wrote up the listing agreement, excuse me, and came up with a figure with Rob's formula, and he accepted it immediately. Oh, that's great. It's worth 425,000. Maybe we'll get 385. We'll settle. Blah blah blah. He was all into it. And then I asked him for some ID, and he said, "Well, I'm here at an Airbnb in Texas," and that's when my antenna went half up and Rob's went all the way up. And he said to me,
Mark, we gotta take a step back. Before you
yeah,
wrote it up, I told you to let's verify his identity, but yeah, I think you kind of jumped the gun on that, and
yeah, that's true. And by the way, I should also mention that I got a second Realtor.com referral for land to sell with another individual immediately afterwards, like the next day. And I'm not a Realtor.com agent anymore. I used to be years ago with Weicker, but anyway, so I was a little bit suspect, but I was excited. Here's a referral. Anyway, Rob suggested that he would do a little research, and he did a skip trace. Is that what it's called, Rob?
yes, well, we did
Yes, hello.
we did two things, Mark. Number one is you asked him for ID. You said our procedure is we want ID to hold on. All right, Mark, unmute yourself again. I'm sorry. So we asked for ID, and I think he didn't immediately respond to you. And then I
Yeah.
also did some skip tracing, and you finished the story from here.
Well, in any case, Rob got some phone numbers for me. We had an address in Jackson where this guy allegedly lived. And it turns out that I did call, and I explained who I was to the gentleman who answered, and he happened to be Ray Jr., who was the son of this person who this guy was pretending to be, who did own the property. And I asked him, I said, look, I got a call from somebody claiming to be Ray, and I assume senior, and he's got this property at this address that he's looking to sell. And I just wanted to call and corroborate, make sure that, you know, you knew he was selling. Anyway, it turns out that this gentleman is a Millstone Township, Jackson, excuse me, policeman. And he said, well, this is very interesting. Thanks for this information. So we collaborated a little bit, and he said he would look into it. And I said, well, you know, we'll try to get as much information as we can as well. And he was very nice about it. But then I also called up Monmouth Ocean MLS, and I spoke with Marie there, who is in charge of these sorts of things. And she said, this has been going on quite a bit lately. And people have been trying to take care of, you know, to take advantage of agents like me who are excited about getting these calls. And she said that she sent me some materials. Maybe I can grab them somehow and put them in the chat. But she said that there's going to be a memo going out to everybody on the MLS about it from the president of the MLS, because this has been going on. And these people get away with it. People, you know, send money in, and they disappear with deposits and so on and so forth. So just please be aware of it. I was very excited and, you know, all gung-ho to get into this, and the guy kept pursuing it with me until finally I stopped communicating with him. But yeah, this
So,
is this.
a couple of things I want to interject here, Mark. Number one
Please.
is, I think you were hesitant to call because you didn't know what to say.
Yes,
And I told you that, you know, there's a possibility that maybe the father does want to sell and maybe you can build a relationship.
true.
And we as a firm had a transaction where somebody was buying a property that we had on the market that was fugazi. It was a fake listing. When we realized it was a fake listing, we reached out to the homeowner and said, hey, we're sorry, we were promoting your property for sale. We actually had a buyer for a really nice price. He's like, oh, I'll be interested in selling it at that price. So ironically, we actually married the buyer and the seller through a fraudulent transaction.
Hmm.
Um, so I'm always rainbow and sunshine here, but I'm also cautious. And I know, Mark, you were like, what am I going to say to this person? I'm saying, like, just be authentic, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And we need to have just an awareness here of, you know, the sophistication of these frauds that are going on. And, you know, sometimes, you know, people might reach out to you 6 months ago, and you might feel like you've had a relationship with them, and then they say, "Hey, now I'm looking at putting it on," right? So they
Right,
really they prey on, you know, our trust and the relationship that they build. And if that person, Mark, had been communicating with you for 6 months, you'd feel like it was your next door neighbor, and you might have actually put that on the market.
right.
So big red flag here. You know, and when you asked for identification, what did they say? What did he
Oh,
say?
he said he's traveling and he left it at home. And I said, you don't have a driver's license? And he didn't respond to that. He didn't answer. He avoided that question. But yeah, he
Rob,
doesn't have that. He didn't have a copy of a deed. He didn't have a copy of a tax statement or bill, anything, nothing with him. I said, there's no one at home that can, you know, send it over. And again, he didn't respond. One thing that Marie told me was that these guys are so sophisticated in these scams that they'll have somebody set up to, you know, pretend to be an attorney, a title company, and his wife was, you know, part of this deal. So he got, I said, get me your wife's phone number and her email address, and he sent it right over. Of course, it
like,
was phony,
we
but
do
he,
have Rob, I just want to tell you that we do have a whole slide presentation with how deep these frauds could go from the FBI. We had a presentation. We also have 2 email addresses for gentlemen at the FBI if Mark would like to report this. And they really showed the levels of the severity of how it happens. So we do have it. I can share it in the hub if anyone is interested in looking at it. But they came and spoke, and it is going on. I've had a few agents, Mark, also my office, who just had calls for land. That seems to be the easy one.
Yeah, yeah, I would like to see that, Fran. Again, I don't like to see anybody being taken advantage of. And, again, I have a good relationship with this woman, Marie, at the MLS, and she said, this is going on and it's widespread, and it's, these people are professionals. They're really good at what they do.
Yeah,
So,
very layered. It's a very
yeah.
layered scam.
So,
Mhm.
we're kind of going off the trail here, but I think this is really important stuff. There's one other, while we're on this case of protecting ourselves, is, Fran, there was an instance where somebody impersonated one of our agents, and did they get away with making a deposit on a rental, Fran?
So what I found out was that they did do a deposit on an Airbnb rental, which was a legitimate site. The agent that was our agent, um, has an investment property, and that's what it was for. But the person started getting worried that they weren't responding to him directly, so they canceled it and got their money back. And luckily that took us out of the equation. But they searched this agent online and I found him. Then they started thinking something had happened to him. Oh my gosh, it was like crazy. And that it was a fraud, but it wasn't a fraud. I found out that it was this agent's investment property with some other folks. Airbnb has strict rules about how you communicate with people who are renting properties. So in the end, it was okay, but it was a big mystery for a while. It was a mystery. It was like scary, you know? And I was trying to reach the guy. Rob, you helped me finally reach him. I had a conversation with him this Monday. So this went on for like 2 weeks.
Yeah, he happened to have been on a cruise, so it was hard
Yeah,
to reach. So,
yeah.
but it exposes additional vulnerabilities where, years ago there were a lot of, and they may still be going on, Craigslist rental scams, right?
Yeah.
Where, hey,
Mhm.
here's a rental. It's a $4,500 or $3,200 rental. They're renting it out for 1,800. You make a deposit, the money's gone. Okay, and if they could somehow connect or use us to establish legitimacy to perpetrate these frauds, we just need to be aware. So if we don't know people, we need to be cautious. The many other industries have know your client. Okay, banks are required to know their client. They a few years back, the banks had to come visit our establishment to make sure that we were a legitimate business because there were fraudulent accounts,
Money.
fraudulent businesses being established and trying to use banking accounts to legitimize themselves to complete frauds. So I'd say, if something seems too good to be true, reach out to your manager, myself, let's brainstorm it together. Thank goodness it was just a couple hours of Mark's time that was wasted. But the deeper that goes, the more people that can get impacted.
One
Okay.
of the
And
one of the big key things that I told my agent to check, Rob, was ask them what their current address is, because if they are the owner of the property, the tax record should also have a mailing address for that person. So I said, ask them what their current address is, or because we have access to the tax information. The New Jersey tax records are awesome at this point. So that was a key thing that eliminated it. But even one of the agents that was when we had Paramus open, had a listing. He took the listing. He found out the neighbor, an agent called him and said, I see your listing. I'm going to show it, but I just don't understand. These were good clients of mine. Why they list it with you? And it was a fraud. I mean, he was able to have it removed from the MLS as though it never existed. So there's a lot of scams going on out there, and I'll send the presentation to Fred. I don't know where he can put it, but maybe he can get it out to everyone.
Put
It's a
it as
good
an attachment here.
presentation.
I want to add
Okay.
something to what you just said, and it's just kind of, may sound kind of silly, but Rob, you may remember this back from the lending days, and we were really trained hard on during conversations to not ask yes or no questions. So I think some people are reluctant to say, and what is your current address? Instead of, can I have your current address? Because when you just ask, what is your current address? Then they're going to kind of stumble all over themselves versus saying, no, I don't want to give out my current address. It's just harder for them.
Yeah, I mean, unfortunately, in the days of technology where people can get access to a lot of people's information, we need to be cautious. And if we don't know who people are, you know, we should have what Beth and I would call a professional level of skepticism to um, trust but verify. Okay. Um, Next topic is my knowledge of some Zillow changes in these private company shared listings, uh, office exclusive listing policies that are going on. Um, I'm going to say something that might be a little bit controversial, which is Zillow is not our friend when they're doing some of the activities that they're doing. But what Zillow's doing is protecting their own revenue stream, where companies like Compass, which are selling very hard, an office exclusive listing so that they can double end properties before they hit the market. And I believe they're trying to use the Zillow vehicle to capture buyer activity on them. And I think Zillow is taking a stand where if you put these on as syndicated office exclusive, that they're never getting on Zillow. And if anybody has any
Yeah.
more information that you could share on that, as well as are all the MLSs consistent if you take an office exclusive, my understanding is that you can market that, obviously, right? You can put a sign in the yard and not cooperate with others. Is that accurate now?
Well, they're not all consistent, actually. Some will have, if you take an office exclusive and you agree to cooperate, but it's not going out, that you can market the property with a delayed showing form as to when the showing will take place. The issue going on with Zillow right now is that, and I think it's Redfin also has put a statement out there, is probably early on in conversations. I'm sure there's going to be attorneys involved in that because Zillow has become a broker. So they cannot refuse to choose or not choose what they're putting out there on the IDX feed, as far as I know. And so there's a lot to be unfolded, and I'm sure it's going to be very interesting meeting in DC, and this will come up. So, in
So
a
does any
way, like, I don't know, look, our clients love to see their home on Zillow, right? Even though Zillow is, I introduce it as a marketing feature of the home. Your home is going to go out to Zillow because everybody, looks on Zillow. But, I don't know. I think those of us that believe in cooperation, uh, it's good that it's going out there. And I don't know how I feel about their standard legally, how it's going to affect their IDX feeds, because they do have IDX feeds right now. Right, Rob Dorso, you are all Jersey MLS?
Yep,
Mhm.
I agree with you 1,000%. Um, one of their big reasons, so they say, is to give the seller an opportunity to try different marketing strategies without accumulating days on the market.
Mhm.
Which is a crock in my opinion. But everybody's looking for an edge right now. And some people are willing to, I think they're going over the line with this policy as far as Compass is concerned, and I think they might get slapped as a result of it.
So, I know there are some of us here that have pretty strong opinions. Many of them are probably consistent with mine that, you know, it's a slippery slope when we start to put our organization interest ahead of our client, right? In other words, I truly believe that these intercompany systems that they're designing are not for the benefit of the consumer. It's for the benefit of, building their brand. Okay. And even to the point where, they might even be able to use that as a tool to attract more people to their company because they're like, oh, well, over here at Compass, you'll have access to more inventory. So you might want to consider joining our firm. Okay. All of this is, in my opinion, self-serving. Okay. Not serving the public. I don't know if there's anyone else that has really strong opinions. I see somebody on here that I've seen did a video post about it, probably 6 months before it was even popular. Um, but I really think that it's a fraud in disguise to kind of double end and also to try to use it as a recruiting tool by saying that we have restricted inventory.
I agree with you.
And I
Did
mean,
you
there's
see the Inman article about this? Is that what made
I
you
did
think of it?
I did not.
There's a whole article in Inman, I'll forward it to you, about this subject.
Yeah,
And
there's been a few out there,
they're
in the
coming out
different,
with a book, a weekly publication, which will house their exclusive listings. I forget what they're calling it, but they'll update it weekly. And all agents from other companies are welcome to come to their office to do a one-on-one review of the book. So tell me that's not.
So this reminds me of time traveling when they used to give those books that people used to go through, right? And it's time traveling in the wrong direction.
It sure is.
I'm sure they have it in digital format, but they want to get the people in their door. So it's a niche for them, unfortunately.
Well, Kai's did that many years ago. And you had to be a member of Kai's to show their listing. And if you weren't a member, you'd get less commission. The Kai's company.
And I assume that was extinguished, that policy.
Yes, 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 yeah.
I remember that. I remember that years ago.
Thank you, thank you.
Yes, yes.
And I remember Fran and Rob Durso probably remember when it was YHD or Foxtons. For a while, we had this. You could file with the MLS saying that if you pay 1%, we'll pay you 1%. Do you remember that?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, reciprocal commission compensation.
Yes. But that kind of hit some challenges too, right?
Yeah,
Yes, and they're
because
no
they said
longer
we couldn't
around.
do it.
That's the proof in the pudding and how those things really last or work, right? That they don't exist anymore.
I
Okay.
emailed that to you, Rob.
Thank you very much. And any last comments on anything in the industry that you'd like to share before we wrap it up for a wonderful weekend?
We should all be aware of what's going on. Things are changing constantly.
Yep. Abe, you and I have been around for a long enough time where we always used to say there's always a cheaper way to fail, right?
Yeah, that's a great statement.
Yep. There's always a cheaper way to fail. Um,
I'd like to just add something that is unrelated to the topic, but something that I think that with everything that's going on, we should still keep front of mind, which is safety. Always be careful about someone who's too excited to see something. Um, I very, very briefly, when I used to manage one of the offices, a man came in and said that he only wanted to work with a woman, and he wanted to go see a property that I knew to be way back off the road.
Oh,
And I said to him, I'm sorry, there are no female agents in the office now, but I'd be happy to set him up with one of the male agents. And he said, no, I only want a female. And I sent him on his way. And then I called the board and I made them aware of it. And they sent out a blast to all the offices that were part of the board. And I started getting calls from other offices in our area where this gentleman had gone in with the same thing, trying to get a female agent. So please, remember first and foremost, with everything else that's going on, our safety is the most important.
there's
And take
also
a second person if you're at all uncomfortable. You should always take a second person. If you're female, take a male. Once they see that male, they may back off.
There's also an app which I believe is accessible to Beaches members in Florida. I'm not sure if it's accessible to any other through any other MLSs or boards, called Forewarn.
Yeah.
Yep.
Do any other boards provide access to that to their memberships?
Arizona does.
Yeah, we have it. It's Stellar has MLS provides it.
Okay, and is it widely known about and broadly used, Wilson?
It is now. In Tucson last year, we had an agent that was attacked and her unborn baby was killed.
oh,
Which is the reason that we actually now get it for free. So it is widely used in Tucson. It's used in Colorado. We had an agent from there. If you don't have it, if you guys don't have it for free, ask your board about it. NAR partnered with them, and a lot of the boards are getting it for free. It's absolutely incredible. I use it almost daily.
And Wilson, that's the way that I got the real owner's name for Mark
Yeah,
on that attempted fraudulent transaction through
it's incredible.
Forewarn.
And I use it for, I'll admit, I use it for all the calls that we get. When you're like, oh, I don't know that number, and then hang up really quickly before you can answer. And it's, a Zillow thing or it's a spam call. It's absolutely excellent. Any phone number, name, or address, you can just check it.
Yeah, and Rob, for those that don't have an alternate party to go with them and such, don't forget Showing Time has Showing Beacon. That's an
Yeah.
app that I think everyone has too.
And Glenn, share with everybody what that is.
So you set a timer and it will notify someone if you haven't checked in by the timer time, right? In Showing Time. It's on your app. If you see it, it says Showing Beacon. You say 15 minutes, and if you don't call them in 15 minutes, it sends a notification to that other party, whether it's your spouse or someone else.
Thanks for sharing that, Glenn. Yeah, please don't get complacent. Don't get, dollar eyes and say, "Oh, I'm going to show a big house on a remote piece of property that might expose yourself." We're working really, really hard, and don't let that emotion, don't let anybody take advantage of our good nature and our desire for more activity where it clouds our judgment. Everybody's like, "Oh, nice land sale would be really great," or "Let me go show this house." They said they're going to sign the buyer's agent, or they signed it electronically. It seems too good to be true. Just be careful. Really be careful. All right. Unless there's nothing else, I'm going to wrap it up and wish everybody a happy weekend, and I'll see you all next Friday.
Thank you, sir.
Thank
Have
you,
a great
everybody.
weekend.
Have a great
Bye.
weekend. Bye-bye.
fine. Thank you.